Every week, Spags, we say these Playmakers apps can't get more ridiculous, and I feel like this might truly be the most ridiculous one yet.
It is possible it's the most ridiculous. It's also in some ways perhaps the biggest journey to where we are in modern day, but we are going to talk about all of that. We're also going to talk about the Scott Fish Bowl. We're going to catch up with some NFL headlines, and we are going to talk about the XFL. Sadly, Pete, we're not going to be able to hitch our gravy train to that one for one more year, but we'll talk about that right after the break. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Splash Play, the fantasy football podcast for every game under the sun. And I am Chris Spags, joined once again by your friend and mine, a man who's about to hit the road here. So we're doing it bright and early on the West Coast on a Friday. He's Peter Overzet. How are you doing, Pete?
I'm doing good. We're getting a little bit of that tropical storm here, so I'm looking out my window and it's dumping rain, and I just realized I need to go bring in the trash cans, which are soaking wet outside. But other than that, I'm doing great, Chris.
Wait, so you're traveling to New York today and you're driving through, because that's all down the East Coast, right?
Yeah, although I was checking, it's supposed to be ease up. I think the warnings end around noon, so hopefully I'll be good. But yes, not ideal to be taking my 2007 Toyota Corolla down to New York in a storm.
I didn't know you had a 2007 Toyota Corolla, but I do feel like that does now fit your unemployed life theme that you're putting out there.
I don't like to brag on this show a ton, but I know people like getting kind of a peek into lifestyles of the rich and the famous.
Speaking of that, Pete, I learned overnight, I guess this last couple of days, some stuff going on here where I haven't been sleeping that well, and I thought it was just related to the things going on in our lives here. And in fact, turns out my HVAC unit has not been getting under 72 degrees this entire week, which I don't know if you have a perfect temperature, Pete. For me, during the day, 70 to 75 is fine. At night, though, I feel like I like getting it closer to 62, 63, because that's for me, the optimal sleeping. Is that too low?
I thought I was aggressive. Like, I like being in the 68, 67 for sleeping. I mean, 61, 60, Lauren she would throw me out of the house if I had it at that.
Yeah, we are definitely. Alex is not a fan. My girlfriend is not a big fan of that one either. But she's gotten accustomed to it. She sleeps with two blankets. We have one big duvet as well that gets shared. I guess we could say not that well. But yeah, I just can't sleep because your body adjusts better to sleep when it's colder. That's the thing, because your body goes into survival mode. So that's what I read I don't know, a couple of years ago. And since then, it's actually worked pretty well for me. Except when you then get accustomed to it, and then the temperature being 10 degrees higher makes your life feel like the Serengeti.
Yeah, I've tried that before too. Honey, you need to freeze overnight, because I listened to this Tim Ferriss podcast where he said it's good to sleep when it's really cold in the room.
That is a difference between a man who has a wife and a man who has a girlfriend, I think. But got to set that bar low to start. But let's talk about some of the NFL headlines that are going on right now. And of course, if you are not following at Splash Play Pod be the first thing. Make sure you're following that, because we do follow everybody back on Twitter and Instagram. So easy way for you to boost your follower count and to make sure that Pete and I are seeing your tweets and stuff, because we actually do go in. I definitely go in and give some likes every time I log on Instagram. So make sure to go follow us at Splash Play Pod. Also, make sure you are subscribed to Pete's channel and the Splash Play channel as well. If you're trying to catch up with our Playmakers episodes, or just see some of the stuff we did last year. I think we had some bits. Hard to stay evergreen in the fantasy football industry, but we had a lot of good guests that may be worth checking out. So go dig through the channel, have some fun before we start hitting full stride heading into the NFL season. But anyway, let's talk about this episode. And I think we got to talk first thing about Trevor Lawrence signing his deal, the number one pick, $36.8 million deal, $24.1 million signing bonus, which is due within 15 days. I thought this was interesting on the ESPN article. They talk about the actual contract machinations and all of that. And I got to say, Pete, Trevor Lawrence, I think, comes from a rich family, so it probably doesn't matter that much to him. But getting $24 million, knowing that you have that coming within 15 days, I could say I don't think either of us can relate, but that has to be the most amazing feeling in the world. I don't even know what would be a close second.
Yeah, and I believe, wasn't the story a while ago, he had a partnership with, I believe it was the crypto site Blockfolio, and he was going to be taking some of his salary in Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies as well. So yeah, he has a lot of money to play around with, and enough to put it in crypto, which just continues to plummet every day right now.
He's actually being paid entirely in Fred VanVleet Top Shot moments.
Now that is an aggressive strategy. Yeah, I can't even imagine. Although with some of these guys too, Trevor Lawrence has been kind of the undisputed number one pick, the QB prospect for a long time. I wonder if at this point there's not even a surreal factor to it to where like since he was like a junior in high school, he's like, yeah, I'm just going to make millions playing quarterback someday in the NFL.
Yeah, I guess there could be a little bit of maybe an entitlement that comes to that, but either way, I feel like it's got to still be a nice moment for him. And I think with Trevor Lawrence, I'm curious actually because I'm not in the best ball world right now. I'm still thinking about if I'm going to go on a run here and maybe do just a bunch of drafts in August or whatever and try to turn that into a thing. Depends how my life goes over the next few weeks. But how's Trevor Lawrence going right now? Because I kind of get the sense he's a little undervalued in the market just based on what I see on social media. And I guess I might be more of a believer in Urban Meyer immediately turning the Jags around into something, I guess, useful for fantasy. But how are you feeling about Trevor Lawrence? Is he appropriately, I guess, where you feel like he should be, or under market, over market? Where's he going?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because there is a disparity between just the chatter about him on social media and his ADP. In ADP, he's going a tick ahead of the other rookie QBs, Fields and Lance. Fields and Lance just seem to get all of the conversation when people are having, debates about upside quarterbacks. But yeah, Lawrence is interesting. I think it's just because there's never been any question about him for so long. It was just like, yeah, he's going to be the number one pick. And I think there's this also conception that he might not be as high upside as Fields and Lance. I think he's still going to run, but he's not going to be as prolific of a runner as those guys. And I think people in general too are just a little scared of the Jags. Like it's like they can't get that stench out of there of like, this is going to be a bad team. But if he's a really good quarterback, and we think he is, and he has good weapons there, I don't see why he can't be in that upside conversation with those guys as well.
Yeah, I think to me, when we talked about Lawrence a while back with Josh Norris on the show, previewing some of the draft prospects, I thought numbers-wise, looking through the PFF data for all the college rookies, like I saw nothing wrong with Trevor Lawrence. I just thought fantasy-wise, there were guys who appealed a little bit more looking at, Justin Fields' stats in particular, Zach Wilson's stats even, I think, standing out a little bit more because just the systems they were in. But Lawrence going into a system where the coach is currently, definitely going to put his imprint on it and going to be a guy who has gotten the most of his QBs in the past relative to college football. I think Trevor Lawrence is in a really good spot. So if he's going at a high ADP, I don't mind going there as long as you're not taking him over other qualified quarterbacks. But in terms of the rookies right now and where they're going to be, I think, Justin Fields, I could still make a case for. Trey Lance, with the reports that the Niners want to run 600 times this year, I feel like maybe knock him down a little bit. But to me, Trevor Lawrence right there with everybody else. XFL bumped to 2023 after they were trying to get in with the CFL, which I guess The Rock was a part of. And the USFL, Pete, I don't know if you saw this. They're apparently coming back next year. And I'm just bringing this up because, to be clear, and I hope you're on the same page with me, whatever football league comes out that's not the NFL, we need to cover it really aggressively in our chance to maybe just carve a little sliver of that limelight out for ourselves.
Well, it was, 2 years ago, we had in February the XFL hit, and playing XFL DFS was just so much fun watching those get. It was like legitimately just so fun. Like I was reluctant at first because I was like, oh, I want to break, whatever. And then I got sucked in. I'm like, no, this is the best. And then this year I had Top Shot is what kind of consumed my time during the early off season. And now it's like next year I'm going to need that hit again, that dopamine rush. So yeah, I don't care what football league it is, as long as we're all obsessed with it and there's DFS, like let's go.
Yeah, I remember the XFL like so vividly where I was watching those games and trying to figure out because I was doing content for Osmo around it and there was no data out there really. Like I had them pay for the established the run package. I was digging through AFL stat or whatever the other one was. It was the AFL. What was the one that was on CBS? Now I'm completely blanking on that. AAF.
Oh, AAF. You're right. Yeah.
They had that run for them. And like, it was honestly a terrible experience trying to figure out what would happen. But then once I realized, the Houston Roughnecks are an amazing team, just play them everywhere for the first few weeks. That was really a lot of fun. So I think there's opportunity with these new leagues. And obviously for guys like us too, there were a lot of XFL news sites that popped up and I'm sure we're really disappointed with the following they built to immediately have to go away. But whatever league is out there, I'm going to do my best to cover it no matter where we are. And I think that's something to keep in mind. N'Keal Harry trying to get traded from the Patriots last year at 3.9 targets per game, 23 routes per game, route per target or target per route rather, 17.3%. I feel like, Pete, you look at N'Keal Harry's numbers, nothing stands out, but I feel like him asking to be traded feels noteworthy because the Pats fans were so, and being in the New England area, Pats fans really loved this guy or thought that he was going to be something for a while. And now he's probably at best a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 on their depth chart. And I don't know if this move matters, but I feel like we kind of have to mention it. So if you have any thoughts, feel free to add them. And if not, just tell me to go fuck myself.
Yeah, no, I was a N'Keal Harry truther. I took him like 103 in a dynasty draft. It was the year before I took AJ Brown there aggressively. Or no, sorry, that was the same year. I was drafting both of those guys early. And to give you the state on where things are at now, I legitimately cut this is even before this rumor or that he wanted the trade. I cut him in a 30-man dynasty league. This is a former first-round pick that's entering his third year, and I was just like, it's done. I even asked Pat, I was like, am I allowed to cut N'Keal Harry? And he's like, yeah, I think you can.
Yeah, I think part of his value last year was he was still getting some end zone targets, but now with Aguilar being back in, that's kind of been his main value add in Philly and for the Raiders last year. So I feel like that's going to be a tough spot, even if he is in there or if he does stay on the roster. But we'll see what happens to him. It's still a young guy who's been maybe oppressed by the system and a team that didn't throw a lot his first few years. So, maybe one of those guys to watch out for if he lands somewhere where there is kind of an opportunity tree for him to get there. But yeah, I agree with you right now. I think he's probably not a guy you want to hold on to. And the last thing here that I want to make sure we hit on, because for somebody like me, I was talking about it with Pete before the show. I see the Scott Fishbowl stuff on social media I have for the last few years. And to me, like, I'm not somebody who keeps up with things that much and is paying that close of attention to it. But I think it's one of those things too, where I knew to not lash out at it. Cause I think there have been some people on social media being, contrarian with what's going on with it. And just, all the hype that you hear about it, where if you're not participating, it can't seem like a lot in your timelines, but legitimately good cause. Scott Fish was won the FSGA is the one that gave him an award for humanitarian in 2019 and was raised a ton of money for charity. So it's one of those good things, Pete, that you might be annoyed with if you're a person out there, but I think sometimes people need to remember or just be aware of hey, don't do any troll takes on Twitter around this one because it's legitimately a nice thing for the community.
Yeah, real quick. Do I look? I mean, I don't want to say I look great, but I'm not hungover. I've had enough. Do I actually look wrecked right now? So is it this little hair?
I think it's the hair thing. Yeah, I thought it a little bit, but I know you just some days your hair just goes wild, man. That's who you are.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, this is
It's one of those things that to me that when doing a lot of the Osmo streams, especially because you get a lot of passerby traffic there, people don't know you that well as they do. Hopefully you guys know Pete on his YouTube channel, but people love commenting on other men's appearances, and that's always something that's thrown me for a loop. I get it. I get, we're doing a show and you guys are watching us, so that's just human nature. But
I can't believe I'm giving off this vibes. I mean, I can't even use our earlier start time as an excuse because I do 10 a.m. shows on Monday. I can't believe this is the vibe I'm carrying right now. Try to bring up the energy here, wipe the crow's legs out from here, whatever.
Well, did you see what he said? He said you're greasy.
Look at these people. You guys are everyone. The new rule too is, I've said this before. Someone on a show, Spags, I did a show on Club Top Shot on Tuesday, and I was wearing a tank top, and someone said I needed to work on my traps. So the new rule is you're allowed to comment on my physical looks, but you have to send me a selfie of you on Twitter, or you can send it a video because then I get to comment on how you look.
Or it has to come with a workout regimen and be how can I fix these straps? Then is it 8 sets? I don't know.
What was I going to say? Scott Fishbowl. Yes, it's fun. I think it is really fun that he has just some crazy funky scoring, and you can build really good teams. I'm doing the underdog drafts, and all the good wide receivers are gone by round 7. In Scott Fishbowl, you're able to get these guys in rounds 10 and 11 because he's balanced the scoring across all positions. So you're really getting some fun teams depending on how you want to build. And yes, I do sympathize with the people who aren't in it and are getting screenshot overload, but there also is nothing worse this genre of Twitter where someone shows the screenshot of what they're muting on Twitter is just the saddest thing I've ever seen. It's I want to be a part of this so much that this is how I'm going to be involved, showing you a screenshot of my mute list. So please don't ever be that guy.
Is it still going on? Are the drafting things still going, or is that all done?
No, yeah, it's still going. I think some drafts finished just because they went super fast. But my draft is a little less than halfway through.
So is there any tips or advice? I feel like we have to offer that up just because I did put it in the title, and I feel like I don't want to deprive the people who are searching for Scott Fishbowl SEO. So is there anything, any advice you would give? Because you've done it a few years, right?
Yeah. I mean, the one thing I've been talking with Davis and Pat about our drafts, and I think what's happened is the scoring system lowers the value of wide receivers a little bit. It certainly does, but people have overreacted to that too much. You're just getting I think I took T Higgins in the 8th round, just a way too much of an overreaction to the settings that I do really think wide receivers are really, really good values right now. And I have yet to take a running back through 8 rounds, I believe.
There you go. I enjoyed that clip that you had with, I think it was you, Pat, and Davis again talking about your draft strategy.
Oh, yeah.
And I do feel like that was a very viable t-shirt to put out there. So I'm glad you're getting in the mix out there. It's always fun to see. I feel like a little bit like Phil the Cuckboy in Playmakers. I'm watching you have fun with your other friends, and I'm like, oh well, it's a good bit. I wish we'd come up with that on Splash Play.
We have lots of good bits here about like how greasy and tired I look.
And Dobby does say you only work out your lower body in the YouTube chat. So I guess that would be a real lunch pail guy kind of move. That's a real Thad Gerwitz kind of move.
Right. Yeah. Because normally the criticism of the, aesthetics chaser is that they're only working upper body and they always skip leg day. So I like to think that I have kind of a holistic approach to my workout plan, Dobby. So I'm glad that you appreciate my lower body.
You're a fitness contrarian, I think is what that would be. We appreciate all you guys for being here, though, especially the live chat. Always good to see you guys out here. So thanks for joining apart. And I'll make sure you're hitting the like button. Of course, if you're watching on Pete's channel, if you're watching on our channel, on the Splash Play channel, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to both out there. And of course, if you're trying to catch up with our Playmakers recaps, do that over at the Splash Play channel. There's a playlist on there so you can dig through, watch all of them along with us, because it has been quite the journey. And I guess, Pete, are you emotionally ready to get into episode 9? Because I have to say, we're doing the show a little bit earlier today. We had a guy tweet us, our guy Yes Man, who always replies to the post and then gives us some feedback on YouTube and on Twitter. He had tweeted earlier in the week at the handle being like, this episode's something else. And I was like, oh, Pete and I usually don't watch till later in the week. And we're at the point of Playmakers where I do not remember these last few episodes. And holy shit, this is a lot to watch at 6 a.m.
Yeah, it was. I was laughing because it was a couple episodes ago that Will Banks had the line of like, what, do I just have a team full of criminals? And then this week it was like, what, do I just have a team full of gay guys? And like, it's just like every week it's just some new kind of scary specter issue is just consuming the entire team. It's like they're all criminals at once or they're all gay at once.
Yeah, I mean, look, honestly, that's empowering a bunch of gay criminals. I think that's the kind of team that I could support just for the sake of diversity out there. But it is episode 9. It's called The Outing. And the show opens with Leon, who's always the moral compass, saying, I don't have a problem with homosexuals, but if you're gay and you play football, you should keep it to yourself. And I feel like, Pete, you see that as the intro. And you know you got to strap in for an episode here where if Leon is given that as the quote, like there was no lead up. It's just like, especially on the Von Allen sports stream that we've been watching for our episodes here, that's always linked in the description. I was just like opening the episode with that. I was like, wow, boy, they're not giving us any breathing room at all.
Why do I have a feeling that Phonics is going to be really upset with where the direction of the show is headed right now?
My fave last 2 round picks in the DK. Let's do it off the top of our head, Pete. Who would it be?
Yeah, so I am a company man in that I have not done a single DraftKings best ball draft yet. I do plan to do some over there. I would say what I'm hearing is that the wide receivers are a little easier to get over there than they are on Underdog. Honestly, like I know this is probably not the answer you love, but with those last picks and flyer wide receivers, I'm just trying to complete stacks. So if I take a guy like Justin Herbert, I might take a flyer on a Josh Palmer. If I somehow end up with Jameis Winston, maybe I'm taking, Marquez Callaway. It's just get that correlation in there with your quarterbacks because you've already made a bet on that offense. I don't know if I have any like in a vacuum flyers off the top of my head.
Who's it? Is it Tyree? And to be clear, I'm not fully in best ball mode. I'm not doing the full drafting. Tyron Johnson. I feel like Tyron Johnson from the Chargers is the kind of guy that I would take a flyer on. So I'm with your thought process there where I don't know what his ADP is right now because I'm not doing this stuff again. Like for me, my personal belief is that best ball's better served doing it closer to the season starting where you have more information. I know people feel that there's more of an edge doing it now, and it's just fun to fill your summer doing it. But I think based on the results I had last year, I feel like doing it closer to the start of the year is going to be the move. But I think a Tyron Johnson type, like those guys who are deep ball guys who showed some limited sample size stuff, and maybe there's a pathway for them to get more routes this year, whether it be a new offense or just a guy leaving. I think it'd be interesting. Falcons receivers, kind of the same thing for me. I don't know, like that's sort of where I'd be looking is where is there an opening, where's there somebody who's been vacated, and then where's there's some opportunity to go around for a guy just improving and filling that role. So
I'll give him one more, a guy I like a lot. I've been taking a lot of Travis Fulgham late in underdog drafts. He was really good for a stretch last year. We still don't know how good Devonta Smith is going to be in the NFL. Rager was had a very disappointing year. Fulgham was like the one reliable receiver for them. I think Hurts takes a leap this year, and you can get him in any draft on underdog. So I like Fulgham as a flyer if you believe the Eagles could be a little bit better this year.
Yeah, I think too, he was kind of the victim of the coaches deciding to not go his way a little bit more, excuse me, down the home stretch. And I think a new coaching staff, kind of the same thing again there, where Fulgham was good, showed that he can produce. And if he gets the opportunity and they decide to play him ahead of a guy like Arcega-Whiteside or who else is, I feel like who else is the wide receiver 3-4 for them potentially. But any of those shitty guys, if he steals some snaps, I think that does make sense to me, even though I think actually I'm more on board with Jalen Reagor this year, I think, than anybody would be based on what he did last year. So we'll talk more about it. All right, back to the playmakers here. See, we care about the people. We have to deviate from our plan to answer the last 2 rounds of DK best ball questions. But we were talking about the homosexuals here in the opening with Leon doing that part. They transitioned to Gerwitz. So this
real quick. His cold open there was literally, I don't have anything against gay people, ... except I do. That was Leon's quote to open the episode. I was like, all right, buckle up. I know where this is headed.
He does have a track record, though, of not wanting personal things aired out. So I guess that could apply then. He's like, look, we should just never talk about anything that happens off the field. Doesn't lead to any good for anybody. As a player rep, as we learned here, the union rep, that he has to represent that part. But we get Gerwitz then after this intro. His half-naked fiance is trying to get him the bone, but he says he has a meeting with an agent. She is clearly feeling sexually left out. And I don't know if you noticed this, Pete, but I deem there to be a fully unused bottle of lube by the bedside as a character choice.
It sounds like you gave this a much closer watch than I did. I miss Chekhov's bottle of lube there.
Look, as a man who's seen a bottle of lube once or twice in my life, I can identify them pretty well, but I felt like it fit the theme, and I thought they were trying to paint a picture here of like, oh, like here's this frustrated woman here who's not getting what she wants. But we do learn immediately that Gerwitz is not going to be with his agent, but we get more quotes from the rest of the football team here, including the PAD lineman guy, who I feel like we know his name, but he's only occasionally referred to as guard dog. In this episode, he gets referred to that more, saying there's no way a gay guy comes through in a tough situation on a field. He'd break a nail or something. And this guy doing his homophobic deaf comedy jam for the media, I feel like certainly gave him more character than we had in the other episodes.
Yeah, I mean, some of these quotes from these guys were absurd, but DH did have the line of the episode in this montage where he said it just leaves more ladies for the rest of us, which is like such a oddly progressive but DH take, like of all the homophobic stuff, like that line absolutely killed me.
Well, to be clear, I want to give DH full credit here because he says, if a guy prefers a man sandwich, that's fine by me. And then he says, leaves more ladies for the rest of us. I did write all the quotes here because they were really a way to open an episode. Big Sexy, aka Buffalo, I guess is his name on the show. We're going to keep calling him Big Sexy, even though he was not very sexy this episode, saying sodomites got no place on the football team, quoting the Bible. We then get Olczyk, who has been still being the cool one, points out that Buffalo's being a fool and says that he is without sin, cast the first stone, another Bible quote. And McConnell says that a lineman weighing around 350 pounds is unnatural, as this player is popping anti-inflammatories and pain pills. McConnell, I feel like, made sense and had a chance here to be a good guy in a way that he has not been in any other episode. And I feel like that's going to be the case for a lot of these guys, besides Olczyk, but they all were really pieces of shit in this intro.
Don't you think that this was actually like weird in that McConnell was the one who entered the locker room earlier in the season with just like a blatant homophobic slur. And then here he's the one, again, being the like progressive voice of being like, I'll tell you actually unnatural things. This isn't unnatural. It seemed like a very weird about face, because normally isn't McConnell just getting in with the jokes here?
Maybe he's a little more media savvy because of the PR component. He's the QB. So like he knows he has to say that to the media, but his own private thoughts, because he was teeing up the balls for Gerwitz to get hurt. So maybe he is like privately a bit homophobic, but then publicly he's like, oh, I have to be the liberal guy.
Yeah, which another thing was just absurd with the hospitable balls in practice when they're not even wearing shin pads and stuff was hilarious.
Yeah, that scene, I mean, that's really, I think, one of my favorite scenes. I don't know, it's terrible and also like a really good one that comes on later on with McConnell. But overall, McConnell, I guess, seems like a good guy in the situation. Gerwitz tells his ex-boyfriend after banging, I guess they somehow reconnected here, and that's exes for you. But he tells the ex that it'd be different after football, and there's apparently a report in a top game magazine that there's a player on the Cougars who would greatly improve if they came out of the closet. And we get Gerwitz's quote that he does not agree that it would be good for that person, whoever it may be mysteriously, that is coming out of the closet. And I guess, did you buy, Pete, that the ex would be banging Gerwitz? I feel like the ex is clearly an unstable guy, as we see momentarily in this episode, but I kind of think that he wouldn't put out right away. If I had to choose, I feel like he would have made Gerwitz earn a little bit more than just showing up and banging him at a time that'd be appropriate for an agent meeting, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, this guy might be the most kind of like volatile human being I've ever seen. Like the way, we'll see what happens later in the episode. He's barged into the club. I mean, it's just awful decision making on Gurwitch. Like sexual preferences completely aside, like you cannot date a person like this, specifically when you're trying to keep things on the down low. I mean, this guy has already proven to just be wildly volatile and unhinged. I mean, he should have pulled the ripcord on that. If he was cared about coming out or getting outed, you should have dumped this guy a long, long time ago.
Tom asked a question in the YouTube chat, which I think is a good point. Has Big Sexy been quoting the Bible all season and I missed it? I don't think he has. Like, I don't think, and I do feel like with DH, he might have like had a something biblical to say at some point. And I do feel like it was one of those things where it's believable because it's football players. And we do know sometimes like Tim Hardaway, I feel like is one of the more famous ones historically, where just out of nowhere came up with some like biblical reasons to not like gay people or whatever. And he supposedly has recanted that and learned and whatever and all that stuff. But I feel like it's believable enough for me, but it does feel like a religious guy probably, like we knew Gurwitz is religious because he mentioned it throughout the show. Like Big Sexy / Buffalo never once said anything while DH is doing lines off of assholes.
To me, it just seemed like a nice like writer's crutch. If like, okay, this is the gay episode, and what are all the reasons people are typically uncomfortable with gay people? One, the machismo. This is football, blah blah blah. And then what's the other go-to reason for biblical, spiritual, religious reasons? Because for some reason they think it said in the Bible that God doesn't like gay people.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And I guess maybe it's to show that even like a nice guy, because I think we're supposed to believe, but I guess besides his training table assault or the locker room assault that he had in the first episode, that Big Sexy's a good guy because he's been a good friend and whatever and been a ride or die. So maybe that's the point too. It could also just be Playmakers being lazy. So I think there's a lot of options here in Playmakers as always. It turns out the team thinks that McConnell's the gay one. There's a cutout of him dressed in S&M attire. And I feel like the first thing we have to point out, whoever did that really went above and beyond in a way that this team doesn't seem the most competent, but they had a pretty realistic Photoshop there built to a life-size cutout.
Yeah, that was pretty impressive. Real quick, I have a question too. What is the timeline on how long Gurwitz has been dating that girl? It seems like by show stuff, it's like 4 weeks, or is it longer?
I think because we only met him like 4 episodes ago. So I feel like, and they go each week as a game. Yeah. So yeah, it has to just be like a month, maybe a month and a half tops.
Okay, yeah, because I was just trying to process like the engagement scene, and like literally 4 weeks later at the jewelry store, going through the 5 C's after only dating for a month. And again, set aside everything else, like that is absolutely crazy. But I guess it's just all for PR. He was just trying to get that squared away. But I would just feel like the bros would be like, you sure you love this woman? Only 4 weeks? Maybe give it just a little bit more time.
I think maybe because it's like athlete and she's like not a celebrity, but she's a model. So maybe it's like that sort of celebrity logic where you can get engaged and married fast. And it's just like, oh, that's just them being eccentric types. I don't know. I feel like I agree. It's a little fast and somebody maybe would want to step in here. But look, when you get a chance at a Haley's Whisper model, you got to take it. We all know that. We got also Will Banks. Well, actually, no, McConnell. Here's an important part. McConnell has 350,000 all-star votes. So he wants the word spread that he's gay so he can get in. I think there's a lot of things to unpack there, but the fact that McConnell got 350,000 all-star votes, apparently that's like a good amount. It was more than DH we learned in a few segments here. I don't know what could have possibly happened other than him being like a borderline influencer superstar type. And maybe that's why he's so good with the press, because he clearly is not his football play that's getting him those votes.
Yeah, we might as well just like skip a little bit and talk about this Pro Bowl stuff. I mean, we've joked about how the whole season, like we can never even pick a player with more fantasy upside than DH. The only guy who supplanted him was the quarterback from last episode who had all the rushing upside. I mean, DH touches the ball 40 times. They already said at the beginning of this episode that they were going to attack the weakness of the secondary with a lot of downfield throws to DH. And then they're trying to tell us McConnell, who gets sacked or throws an interception every other pass, or Gurwitch, who catches 2 screen passes a game, are going to go to the Pro Bowl. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not buying it, Playmakers.
I agree. It was not set up the best here, but yeah, DH apparently has 300,000 votes. Big Sexy has 700 votes, which Big Sexy is upset about. Maybe that's why his homophobia is showing, but to get 700 votes, I'd honestly rather have 0 votes, I feel like.
Yeah, I mean, that's like, That's like his mom going down to one of those voting kiosks and just repeatedly putting in ballots. Like that's how many votes that is.
And Tom saying it's clearly an air raid offense. We just never see it. I guess that's possible. They just are only showing us the most boring plays over and over again. Though in practice, Gerwitz was airing it out or was getting it aired out to him. So maybe there's more upside to the offense than we realize. But either way, it's the Pro Bowl stuff is really, or the All-Star. They could not get the rights to Pro Bowl here. It's definitely a weird plot line that I guess does fit in well by the end of it all. Back to the rest of the stuff. McConnell was again rumored to be gay, so Will Banks wants to talk to him. Asks, and again, these are quotes here, so please don't just take these things out of context and assume that they are my beliefs. He's saying, "Are you a fairy? You don't seem like one, but you can't tell these days." Will Banks also says some franchises are okay with it. Our fan base won't support it, especially at your position. I feel like this is one thing, Pete, where I don't know if we've ever had the location confirmed or if it's, sort of been implied a little bit more often than not that it's Florida. But if ever there were a time to think this is a Florida team, I think that quote from Will Banks about them not supporting a gay QB as probably the most Florida thing.
And it is like we've been saying all along that Will Banks is this pragmatist, right? Like everything is just the ends justify the means, whatever it is to win, cover this shit up. But we finally found what actually supplanted winning to him, to the fact that they were willing to bench their best wide receiver because of optics, because of worried about what the fans would think, which I think stoops Will Banks to a new low, because I was like, at least if you have this Machiavellian thing, you just want to win at all costs, like that at least checks out consistently. But now you're just a shitty person.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good way to look at it, that when he's all about winning, at least there is sort of that ethos that we admire about football. It's somewhere in there. But yeah, when you're just all about the business, all about the money, and then I guess not willing to win for whatever misguided approach here, definitely a tough episode for Will Banks, who's really never been likable in any episode. No. He does force McConnell into giving a press conference. McConnell's horrified at the idea of having a press conference. Around this time, Gerwitz also gets the genius idea from the PED lineman. I guess at this point, it's not suspecting him as the gay guy, that they don't bust guys who have a wife and kids. So Gerwitz does in fact go to buy that ring that we talked about, which has a 14-day return policy. And I thought, Pete, this is going to be a dramatic angle they would use, like, oh, is he going to do it or not? And instead it's just the next scene of him being like, hey babe, you want to marry? And then her being like, I'm going to make you so happy. And I didn't buy any of that.
Imagine your fiance being or your girlfriend being in earshot of you at the jewelry store and you're clarifying what the return policy is. I'm just imagining if that would have gone down, how that would have gone over.
He did say, like, if she doesn't like it. He didn't say, like, in case I decide I want to go gay full time. So
but isn't she there with him? Isn't she helping him?
No, he went on his own, I think, after the agent situation, and he got
okay, I missed that
point. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so no, she was genuinely delighted, I guess, to get whatever shitty ring with a 14. I don't feel like any good ring has a 14-day return policy.
No, I can't imagine that either. I did. It was a nice throwback to learning about the 5 C's when I went to pick out an engagement ring.
Clarity,
cut, consistency, cost, and carat.
Oh, okay. There. Yeah. Wow, look at this. Like, oh, it's our carrot. I was like, isn't carrot a K? But no, it's well, like good to know, I guess, for any future things this might have to take on. Speaking of learning things, Leon explains how salary caps work to Olczyk, because he's concerned that he's going to get cut if somebody else on the team gets paid. It turns out that Olczyk has been secretly working on a deal with Will Banks that is almost done. This ends up being a plot point, Pete, but I feel like Olczyk, I don't know, like him getting a deal done, given the fact that they were basically treating him like a replacement level player last game, seems like a bit of a surprise.
That's the whole thing about all of these players and like how they're valued. It's like Leon gets like 4 touches this whole season, but they wouldn't trade him for a first round pick. Like, Olczyk is getting like burned in the parking lot. Another funny thing about Olczyk too, he got burned by Leon in practice. Yeah. One of those passes. It's like, who can Olczyk guard? You're telling me he can't keep up with an old dusty running back in practice, and he was going to be tasked with spying one-on-one coverage of the Michael Vick in the last episode. Like there's no consistency to these players' skill levels.
Yeah, I think with Olczyk too, like I think that also makes the thing from last game with them playing that, again, if you missed last episode, there was a parking lot pickup game against this Mike Vick doppelganger in the show at the strip club, I guess, with these guys in dress clothes. So Olczyk is negotiating for the biggest contract in his life, and he was also doing that at the same time. Like that was a foolish move at the time frame, but now knowing too that he was up for this deal and he was aware of it, his agent was talking, like it really makes the move in hindsight even stupider. If he had torn his ACL there, he's not getting that $4 million, Pete, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, he is not. And you guys were talking about it in the Discord too about Olszyk's real age versus how old he's portrayed to be in here.
Yeah, so that's something that we get later on in the show, but we get to skip to this part. So we do learn that Olczyk gets the deal here. Wilbanks wanted to have the coach tell him, I guess, instead of telling himself, which doesn't seem like a Wilbanks move. I feel like Wilbanks would definitely want to congratulate Olczyk himself and be like, I've paid you $4 million. I'm very pleased. Do a great job for me. Make sure there's no homosexuals around and such. But instead, he does have coach do it for him. And then, yeah, we learned that Olczyk is apparently 26. My initial thought, and this is the thought of somebody else in chat, I think it was Tommy in Pete's Discord, saying no fucking way this guy was 26. The actor was 31. So here's the question I have, Pete. Is it easier for like a 21-year-old to play a 16-year-old than it is for a 31-year-old to play a 26-year-old? Because those happen all the time. Like you watch any of the horror movies on Netflix, yeah. Those are all like 24-year-old people playing high school kids. But this guy being fucking 26, I was like, there's no world where this guy's 26.
Yeah, I would have never, ever guessed it. I think it's like the triple threat of a dude who's in good shape, who's bald and also has a goatee. Like those three things together, you're just never going to peg them at that age. I'm legitimately shocked. I would have guessed 35 for the actor when he shot that. I would have been so far off.
Yes, like Boston's actually like 20.
Younger,
you don't know.
But I am right now. You said he was 26.
They were playing him as 26. The actor was 31.
Okay, the actor was 31. So I am 3 years older than Olczyk was when he shot that, which is just like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm 5 years older than Olczyk, and I feel like we both represent younger, and that's certainly for people out there I know on YouTube that could be a curveball. But yeah, like I some people just look older, and I guess too, we are not hulking men. Maybe there's something with just having to keep. Though honestly, I feel like that actor probably is like a legit small guy in real life. Like he's probably like 5'4" and just like
yeah, it's just the Tom Cruise optics thing. I actually one thing I'm doing to try to actually look older now is kind of look a little greasier in the morning. So I hope that did work.
Well, that was actually when I was at Barstool. Like I actually grew this we'll call it a beard, but it's like scruff basically, because I always looked younger and everybody's like, oh, like you must be like 24, 25. And I'm like, no, like I'm like almost 30. Like I just don't want to have this be like my perception, because I felt like it was not holding me back necessarily. And it's weird because I feel like people don't get that. People always want to look younger, but sometimes you do want to age yourself up a little, so people just don't think you're some asshole who like doesn't know what he's doing out there.
Yeah. It's true. I'm jealous of the people who can grow decent facial hair. I am not one of them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not either, but I feel like we're working. We're doing the best we can. That's all you can ever. You and your grease, me and my hair, we're all doing the best we can. Apparently, the OC Lyles is not a total shithead now. He's concerned about coaching his chemo. Mentions that he had an uncle that went through chemo, and Lyles, I guess, gives him a game plan. And this was like a scene that had nothing else to do with the rest of the episode. So I guess it's just like showing that Lyles isn't totally bad. But now that I have my notes here, I don't know what the scene had to do with anything at all in the rest of the episode.
It had nothing to do. It felt really weird to me as well, and completely out of character. Where it's like Lyles had already shown that he's willing to like not really care about coach's health and just wants to use this as a way to ladder up in the front office or whatever. And and now they're like, actually, maybe we have a different plot point we want to do, so we need to sprinkle in Lyles not being awful. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be it. They're maybe setting him up for a face turn here down the home stretch. We do have Leon then is somehow the one who congratulates Gurwitz on his engagement first, and he unironically says, "Welcome to the dark side." And I don't like Leon is the stupidest human being alive.
He really is so dumb.
There's no awareness at all of anything, but either way, these guys are at practice, and I made a note here that these guys love running one play, then taking their helmets off and doing shenanigans.
Right, which it's like the only way that is realistic is if it is at the end of practice or the end of a segment of drills. Coach says, all right, one more play before we transition to the the film room or whatever. But yeah, it's just like, what's the one no in football too? Like, you don't take your helmet off. But man, I guess it's just not as good to talk trash when your helmet is on.
Yeah, and I feel like usually too, and granted, I only played high school football. I wasn't playing on the level of these Cougars or anything, but like they would make us run plays over and over again in a row. Like they wouldn't just be like, okay, one play and everybody take a breather, let's all sit around and just hang out. Like I don't know. I feel like maybe it's different in the pros. I don't know, but I do think the whole point of running plays is to sort of get the right look and to see how it goes and all that. And that's not the approach here for the Cougars. McConnell has his press conference, which I feel like was shockingly classy. He says there's nothing wrong with being gay, but he does want to dispute the rumors. The media is there, and then at the same time, inconvenient timing for Gerwitz. Gerwitz's ex shows up very unhappy with the engagement and is yelling about having sex in front of everyone. It is a full-on outing, hence the title. And the teammates are stunned. There's silence when Gerwitz enters the locker room. But Pete, how'd you feel about the scene here of the dramatic boyfriend with the Chris Kattan haircut coming in after, I guess, having whatever? I was going to make a coming joke. Didn't quite come to me right away. But awkward situation for this guy to do that. Of all the times with all the media there is not the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, this guy is just such a nightmare. You can't be dating anyone this volatile. And I love that even in just kind of the pure rage and anger, he had the kind of wherewithal to say the joke. If you guys think he has soft hands on the field, you should see them in the bedroom. Where it's like either that or he was like marinating on that line all day. He's like, that'll be the thing I yell in front of all of his teammates that will burn him so hard.
You definitely shopping that in the car ride over. It's like, all right, what am I going to do? Is it a balls joke? Is it a hands joke? I'll go with the hands. The hands is classier.
This is another good point. How does this guy get into the facility like at all? I mean, the kind of security at this stadium, the practice facility. I mean, we're bringing women, throughout the inner corridors to the locker room. We got this guy running into practice. It does seem like a concern.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess it's Phil letting him know. So I don't know. Phil's always trying to be helpful. So maybe just Phil is incompetent as well. Might be the underlying subtext there. I guess we'll find out in the last few episodes. But the teammates are stunned. Again, there's silence when Gerwitz enters the locker room. Olshik goes to talk to him, and Gerwitz yells, "It's not true," to the whole locker room as Big Sexy says, "Okay, sugar." And then the PD lineman, guard dog, and McConnell are piecing together the guy who showed up to practice is the one who hit on the lineman at the bar that Gerwitz punched out. And then the PD lineman says he doesn't want anyone looking at his ass. DH, suddenly a character who was greatly homophobic to the point where he didn't want a catheter put into his penis by a doctor. Suddenly he's not homophobic and remarks, nobody want to do that anyway. And DH is all cool about this now. A lot of character inaccuracies, Pete, but I feel like these guys handling it, I don't know. I feel like the offensive lineman group in particular, like it was the linebackers, or I guess the linebackers in secondary and the offensive linemen. Everybody else seemed pretty cool, but those guys very homophobic.
Yeah, it probably, again, just the writing of just being like, who are the toughest, most macho guys? It's the big guys on the line. They can't have this. I was thinking we were going to literally get some like McConnell touching the center's ass type of homophobic joke, like the way this episode was going. I was like, how have they not done that?
Yeah, I think that would have been too comedic, I guess. But I do feel like, given the show, they don't do a good job balancing the comedy and the drama, so it might not be the biggest surprise. Big Sexy thinks that God won't help them now because they quote unquote talk to him through a sinner because Gerwitz is, I guess, a pastor in his time or whatever too. Leon points out that maybe it'd be him and DH doing coke that leads to that, which DH corrects to him doing coke and being questioned around a murder. He doesn't admit to covering it up. And Leon also beating his wife and coach getting chemo, and they are on a winning streak despite all of that. So DH only cares about his $200,000 signing bonus if they keep winning. And I feel like DH, the one guy keeping his character sound, besides the lack of homophobia, I guess.
It's honestly incredible that this team is stringing together wins with this skill position group, literally every possible distraction in the world. And yet they're still just, ripping off wins. Like, I don't know how they're doing it. These other teams, like, imagine how big of a disaster the other teams are in this Playmakers universe if this team is able to win games.
What, like, there must be like actual murders going on in the other locker room. Like it's like Friday Night Lights where they had Landry, the kicker, on their, spoiler alert, being a part of a murder in the second season. And that's for the other teams. Like, oh, we have literal murders. They're doing Breaking Bad. They're selling meth out of the locker room because that's the only way this team can hang in there, I would think.
Yeah, it's incredible. I can't believe that they're winning games. I don't know how.
We got the Olczyk getting the contract here. Olczyk also, it's worth pointing out, his coach tells him about this deal that he got. Olczyk is worried about this putting them over the cap, doesn't want his contract to be announced because he's learned about the cap through Leon, and this might affect him. And then he immediately comes clean to Leon because he's a good friend. Leon, shockingly, as we know with Leon, always an even-keeled guy. He's mad. He wants to know what Olczyk got. Olczyk won't tell him, even though this will immediately be in the media. Leon is mad that he lied to him. It's hard to tell if Leon's even right in these situations for me because I hate Leon so much, but I do feel like Olczyk could have told him, like, hey, like, I'm getting this deal, like, just FYI, like, it's unconventional, I know. Like, he could have done that. I feel like Leon might have been in the right here, but classic Leon just does it in a stupid way.
This is another thing too, where the Leon like persona in this show, like they wasted it on being in like a camp battle or running back battle with DH, because now his like prominence is just way too overblown for like what he actually brings to the team. I mean, we're literally talking about a second string running back that gets 5 touches a game and is on the last legs of his career, but he's somehow like involved in every major story. Like they should have just made Leon the star wide receiver. He could have been the wide receiver 1. Gerwich could have been the wide receiver 2. And all of this would have made the diva-ness would have made a little more sense, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a reasonable way to look at it. I think too, like the character, like the way that he is in this episode, where he's like the player rep and he's like the savvy veteran, like it kind of got undercut by the fact that we just saw like he's completely incompetent in handling his own life. So I feel like they could have had him be like the wise veteran there who's doing this stuff. And I don't know, maybe they could have given domestic violence to another guy. There's a lot of ways to handle the approach here. Then I'm with you that they could have definitely carved this up a little better, but they just love the idea of the running back, young running back, old running back kind of approach there. The PED lineman, guard dog, somehow gets Gerwitz's fiance's number and calls to tell her that he wasn't going to see his agent. He was going to, quote unquote, do his boyfriend. The fiance thinks it's some sick freak, and Gerwitz says it's not true and just a classic team prank. And I have to say, even if you are homophobic or whatever, calling somebody's fiance is a really aggressive move when you guys are teammates in the same locker room.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild. The overstepping of bounds with people here is it's truly unbelievable.
Yeah, you know, they're all family at the end of the day. That's what much like Fast and the Furious. That's what a team is. Olczyk tells McConnell that the offensive line guys called Gerwitz's fiance. Cuck Phil tells Gerwitz that the coach wants to see him, and the coach tells Gerwitz that Cleveland's secondary is shit. He doesn't care about what Gerwitz does with his life because he just wants Gerwitz to carve up Cleveland's secondary. And Gerwitz says, "I don't do anything else." Then coach gives them photos, and we find out that I guess there are photos out there of Gerwitz with his lover or with the ex-boyfriend. They're not fully incriminating, but this immediately becomes a thing, Pete, where I feel like this is what Playmakers does, and it's so annoying, where they set up a scene. It's like, oh, cool, coach has his back. It's going to be a great moment. And instead it's just like, oh, yeah, never mind. Like, there's nothing he could do because Woolbanks is going to fuck him anyway. And it's just sad because coach is being a good guy. And I don't know. I just, like, I want this to work out. And immediately they dampen that fire right away.
Yeah, they really did make it seem like, oh, we have another progressive guy in the building. He's going to be an ally for him. And then no, it's we're going to do what Will Banks says.
Yeah, so Will Banks wants Gerwitz on the injured list because these guys are not in lockstep. Almost always his goal is to make the playoffs, but coach implies that if Gerwitz isn't with the team, it's not a story. And I feel like, Pete, based on what I know of the media, if Gerwitz isn't with the team and then it comes out that he's gay, I feel like that's a much bigger story because then there's clearly some cover up and whatever. And then like, I don't think, granted, you know, the owner might not be a PR expert, but I feel like they were treating it like that's real. And in fact, this would be the much bigger story is if they somehow forced the guy into the injured list for being gay.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that is like a blockbuster story, if that's the case. I mean, this is like expose, you know, ESPN 10-page articles, you know, doing if this happens. Whereas I guess it is obviously a different era, but it's not even close to the same story.
Yeah, Gerwitz doesn't want to lie about being injured, which is the point of the scene here. So he goes to talk to Leon. Leon's the player union rep, as we learn, and Gerwitz wants to file a grievance. Also, must have been kind of a bad look for one of the union reps to be involved in a domestic violence situation. That's neither here nor there. Leon apparently is very aware of the rules of player rights, so I guess he has a future there if he wants to do something else. He doesn't care about Gerwitz's personal life, despite his comments earlier in the show. And he also says that Gerwitz would be signed by 10 teams in the offseason, which threw me for a loop, and I guess does make sense when we get to the end and find out that he's a Pro Bowler or an All-Star, whatever they're calling it. But 10 teams, like he must have been quietly he might be the best fantasy guy on the team now that we're hearing this information.
Yeah, you know, it's like when everyone lines up to get Adam Humphries in free agency. I mean, you got to get this guy. The kind of myth of like what he was to the team, like literally grows like every minute in this episode. Like he goes from like, their wide receiver who gets a couple targets a game, to they're building game plans around him to where now he is their Pro Bowl representative, to where he's so good that he can tell everyone on the team that he's better than them and to fuck off. Like it's the run for Gurwitz here is incredible.
Yeah, I feel like they must have realized when they introduced the character, like, oh, he's going to be like a middle of the road guy who's just, getting drugs for DH. And then they're like, oh, well, actually, we could do this storyline. Yeah, let's make him really good all of a sudden. And that seems to be the case here. But Gurwitz doesn't want to lie about being injured. So he goes to Leon. Leon then goes to Wilbanks. And Wilbanks was hoping that Leon would have his back, even though Leon is trying to make Wilbanks pay for the contract shenanigans that were going on with the Olschick deal. Wilbanks tells Leon he doesn't want to get any grief from the union. And I guess Wilbanks just doing his usual manipulation while the PED guy's being a bitch about Gurwitz being on the team. And I feel like everything around this, like all of it from top to bottom, I just note here, this did not age well. And I think that's clearly the case of the whole episode. But up to this point, and this is before the practice scene, I feel like it really just stood out that it's just like, oh God, it's just uncomfortable at this point.
Yeah, it was we're gonna do the awards of stuff that wouldn't happen in an episode today. That's like this entire episode. I mean, this is when ESPN or the league is getting on the phone with ESPN and being like, you have to shut this down right now, right?
I would think so. I mean, again, I'm sure that call happened many times throughout the crack escapades and the murder and domestic violence and all of that. But yeah, this is one not the best. We are at practice though, and this is where I thought it got better. So I made the note here that it didn't age well, and I thought this practice scene, if anything, maybe aged the closest to being where it would be now. We're at practice. Gurwitz is being lit up on catches by a linebacker named King. Olschick isn't having it, but Gurwitz says it's okay, man. So Olschick backs down. Gurwitz keeps getting hit, is literally bleeding, and the linebackers tell him to stay down, but he won't stay down until one of the DBs helps him up and says, good catch. Coach calls the practice, wants him at the showers, but Gurwitz won't leave. And then coach says he made his point and he made it well. And so we didn't get to the coach speech part yet, Pete, but when you see this guy getting hit over and over again, like I got the story they were telling, they were trying to show, I guess they were actually doing more showing than telling here, where it's like, hey, he's as tough as anybody. He's getting abused. This quarterback is fucking him over. McConnell's talking about, hey, oh, my bad, that pass sailed on me, man. And like, he's getting railroaded fully by his own team, but he keeps getting back up. And no spoilers for Captain Marvel, an unrelated movie entirely, but there's a similar scene in there that I feel like stoked the fire for me. And I feel like I just love people getting back up over and over again. Like that's the ultimate thing for me that in any sport movie will get me, or any movie, I guess, in general will get me.
Yeah. Although I mean, to have your own teammates targeting you and trying to hurt you is just absolutely wild under any conditions whatsoever. Yeah, it was actually kind of hard to watch. It's like these are truly awful human beings.
Yeah, I was impressed by his fighting spirit, but I would agree. Like, yeah, that is, I guess if you're looking through that lens, it is also incredibly downing, or much of a downer, that these guys are professionals and they're just abusing a man to the point of bleeding and injury for the sake of, I guess, not liking gay people. But the coach says in his 23 years of coaching, he's never been more embarrassed by a team. He finds the PED lineman, guard dog, McConnell, King, and the safety who helped Gurwitz up, who I feel like wasn't involved in this and was just was being nice at the end. But he finds him $25K, each threatens to fine him $50K if they go to the union. And McConnell's maybe concerned for him, wants Gurwitz to go to the doctor to get x-rays, but Gurwitz refuses. And we see him shower alone, full butt cheeks and all, as he recites the Lord's Prayer and relives the hits. And tough scene, but I'll tell you what, the Gurwitz, he lived up to the scrappy slot white wide receiver rep that has been out there for decades.
I feel like the writer, they're like, wait, we're making McConnell to be way too much of a villain. Let's like give him a little heart. Like every time we're just like, no, this is the worst dude. They're like, okay, he's not the stone worst. He's just the worst.
Yeah, he's not a great guy, but I guess, doesn't want to see the wide receiver, by the way, the only wide receiver we know in the show. So clearly he's the one who's helping McConnell get those 35,000 votes or whatever in the Pro Bowl. But he doesn't want to see him dying out there. He just wants to see him injured violently, I guess, in the course of practice. DH dressed like a literal pimp is there to hear what turns out the All-Star announcements. Did you like that outfit? He literally looks like the Dave Chappelle bit about the player haters ball. Yeah.
And like the other thing too, is it like wasn't even matching. Like it was all just completely clashing. It was like this bright blue hat. It was so outrageously over the top. I was dying.
Classic DH. He's the only one, it turns out. DH expects, I guess, to hear himself be announced as a Pro Bowler / All-Star, but the only one to make the team is Gurwitz. Coach asked if there's anything he'd like to say, and Gurwitz, I guess, I'll give the parts of the speech that I quoted here. You guys already know, it's no secret now. I'm the best player on the team. I feel like this should have gotten a laugh, Pete.
It was so unbelievable. And I get why he's upset. Like, these guys were just targeting him in practice, but it also is like, everyone's been through a lot through this situation. This seems like the time to like send the olive branch. Like, I already got the accolade that proves, and well, that's even a whole other story if he deserves it. But we got the accolade that proves that he can be a good player despite his sexual orientation. And yet he wants to attack all of his teammates, burning every bridge. I'm better than you guys. You guys are assholes, and I'm going to the Super Bowl. It wasn't the angle I would take if I was Gerwich trying to turn over a new leaf.
Well, that's what I thought he was doing initially when he was like, it's no secret now, I'm the best player on the team. Like, I thought he was doing a bit. Like, I thought he was like, oh, like, I'm doing a self-effacing joke. Like, we know I'm not the best player on the team, but I'm the one who got in. So I thought that was the way angle he was going to go, was like, oh, I'll just soften myself up. And no, instead, he does admit to being gay. He asks Guard Dog how it makes him feel. He tells them good luck, saying, I don't belong now. He also mentions a couple years ago, the league didn't want a black QB, and asks a guy who we've never met in the show, who's apparently the backup QB, a guy named Trent, saying, are you too stupid to play the game? So he just threw in some, I mean, he's making a point. I get it, but it did feel odd. Like, oh, here's the one black QB on the team. Let me just call, like, oh, are you a dumbass? Like, let me just throw the stereotypes another direction.
Yeah, I mean, this scene was absolutely ridiculous, and I still can't get over, like, have we even seen Gerwich score a touchdown in a game?
No, I think we've seen him catch one real pass in a game.
And this guy's going to the Pro Bowl. I mean, DH, literally, we hear about his 20 plus carries, 2 TD games, 100 plus yard games, like, every week. And Gerwich, I mean, like, how bad are the wide receivers in the league? Like, if Gerwich is going, this must be the worst wide receiver class in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, I would think that's probably a good way to look at it. I would have liked to hear like one, like they could have had, oh, like Gerwich, man, crazy game out there. You had 10 catches for 150 yards.
Something that, like, what were the voters seeing that we weren't? That's what I want to know. Or like you said, some kind of, they did the ESPN, the radio segment, like, let's get a puff piece on Gerwich leads the Cougars to like streak of wins, or he's unlocked a new version of their offense, like anything to make this believable.
Yeah, I agree that they could have shaded a little bit more, but that is what Playmakers does. Gerwich closed this speech by saying is that all that matters is that he helps the team win. He's not going anywhere except to LA, which they don't make clear, but I presume that's where the Pro Bowl / All-Star game is played. Olschick, then it's a kind of an awkward little 5-second, 10-second split. And then Olschick is the one who steps up, shakes his hand and congratulates him. Then everyone does one by one, but Wilbanks wants to see him. Wilbanks congratulates him, then breaks out the tape of Gerwich buying drugs for DH a few episodes ago, where we first met Gerwich. Wilbanks then threatens to give the tape to the league. There's going to come a time where you could stand up for who you are, and now is not that time, he says to him. All he had, and okay, so here's what bothered me the most. All Gerwich had to do is be like, I was buying drugs for DH. If he went to the media and or even just threatened to go to the media and say that, and granted, maybe he's being the good teammate, these guys weren't good teammates, whatever, but like, it was a really easy fix for him here. And instead, after all his conviction, he just immediately signed the injured reserve thing and was out. And that just bothered me here, because if he wanted to fight back, he could have fought back.
Yeah, I mean, getting blackmailed on top of this. Part of me just would love to see them both go down. Him for aiding and abetting with this drugs, DH for doing drugs at the stadium, and then I don't know, maybe Big Sexy gets to be the representative at the Pro Bowl in that situation.
And Tom does point out here, he is the only person that we have seen McConnell throw to. So I guess that's a good point, that based on what we know, and we are a data, podcast / show, first and foremost, Pete, that's a 100% target share. So I think we got to keep that in mind when we are talking about Gerwich.
Yeah, I mean, I still like it's the only person he's throwing to. If we're giving wide receiver MVPs to the Cougars, I mean, it's definitely Gerwich. No questions asked. I'm just wondering what else is happening across the league.
Then amidst all this going on, very dramatic stuff with Gerwich, we then have Leon and Olschick talking about the contract thing once again. And Leon's deal is not a priority because he's old. Olschick is like, you're not old. They could have done this in another part. They could have done this before the other scene and just gotten this out of the way. I feel like I don't care about Leon's contract, and like, they're not trading first round picks for him. He's a free agent. It's all stupid. And the team machinations here are completely illogical.
It's absurd. And to think like you shouldn't be giving, Neither of Olshik or Leon should be getting any contract extensions at this point in their career, from what I've seen from them. So this is all a mute point.
Yeah, the only one who deserves one is Gurwitz, who hears from coach that any team that he coaches, Gurwitz can play on it. Gurwitz talks to the media. He won't come out publicly and says he's excited to spend some more time with his fiance. And he doesn't have to be a hero publicly. I guess he came out to the people that matters. That's sort of, I think, the whole point of, we just had Pride Month. Like, I know that's a whole thing for the community out there, but I feel like Gurwitz certainly, I think, earned this episode, like the show did give enough here for his journey, but I just wish they had ended it on a more prideful note instead of, no pun intended, but a note where we could feel good about it. Cause you're rooting for the guy throughout. He's probably the only guy I feel like we can actively root for in the show besides maybe Olshik. And it just bummed me out that it's the end is just him being like, yep, I'm just going to go back to my life, pretending to be straight.
Yeah. That was not the whole way that this, not that we need a happy ending with kind of this arc, but just the way it's what did we learn from this experience? Was there anything heartening from this? Any kind of team bonding, any kind of progress? And it's just no, we're still in this absolute shithole. All
right, so let's run through some awards real fast. And guys, again, hit that like button if you can, whether you're watching on Peach channel or on the Splash Play YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all of that. And again, 5 stars interview in Apple Podcasts has helped us out a bunch. I forgot to plug that earlier. So now's a good time to do that when everybody, I'm sure, doesn't give a shit about our awards that we're giving out. But let's talk about them anyway. Who has the most fantasy upside? It has to be Gurwitz, I guess, leading into this game. Now, probably moving forward, not so much, but he was going to have a dominant game against Cleveland, Pete. I think we can all agree there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm just being irrational, but I just refuse to think that Gurwitz has enough upside. I just absolutely if we had Pro Bowl DFS for this Playmakers reality, I'm fading him big time in that game.
I would very much enjoy that. Very, very niche tournament. Be a tough one to fill on DraftKings. The most unrealistic moment of the episode. Is it the whole episode? I guess. I think it's the the owner blackmailing him. I feel like has to be fundamentally the most unrealistic because owners are scumbags. I feel like that's a level of scumbaggery well beyond. But I think that to me just has to be it.
Yeah. Sorry. Which award?
Most unrealistic moment of the episode.
Most unrealistic. Oh my God. I mean, this whole show is just full of it. I will say, just players blatantly targeting their teammate in practice is just I'm sure there's been skirmishes, right? Where guys, get into it, they get heated and stuff, but repeatedly just spearing a dude, it was just wildly unrealistic.
Yeah. Moment that made the NFL the most mad. I feel like it's probably that scene overall. It's a powerful scene of a guy overcoming things, but I would agree here. The players going out for business on their own and just beating up a guy for being gay. I feel like the NFL probably not thrilled with that one.
Yeah, that opening montage where they're just tossing around all the homophobic slurs. Yeah. I think the NFL is oh God, turn this off.
And the owner stuff too, I think probably would make the NFL not the most delighted. The NFL happiest scene, I guess, just Gurwitz, going on injured reserve and talking about going to see his fiance.
Yeah, I thought that was. I think that's heartwarming.
The NFL will be like, oh, that's so nice. Good. He's going on injured reserve, but life goes on here. That's what the NFL loves to see. Asshole of the episode, I think, has to be Guard Dog, going well above and beyond with his PD love that we've seen in the past, and calling a fiance not the best move. So I will say he is in fact my asshole of the episode. I guess the real asshole of the episode could be the Gurwitz's ex-boyfriend as well.
I mean he's up there. I'm gonna go with Will Banks, who just, like you said, he made that shift from just caring about winning to actually just being a horrible human being. So he gets my asshole.
Also, I just want he gets your asshole, does he?
Please don't clip that one.
Also, to be clear, when I was giving the award out, I was literally referring to the ex-boyfriend's anus. I just want to.
No, I did. You were doing it purposefully, and then I said it accidentally.
That's how it goes on this show. Cool bro moment of the episode. Leon, the player rep, I guess would be it. He was helping out. Though Olshik just being supportive throughout. Olshik is really the one guy I think is just always there for everybody. So it's probably Olshik. But I did like Leon being well, listen, I might not support your lifestyle choices, but I'm gonna here's the cap rules. Here's what section 1A has this. So I don't know. I liked it.
Yeah, cool, bro. Also, let's say the employee at the jewelry store, I think, was doing a really kind of comprehensive job of helping Gerwich pick this stuff out, letting him know about the return policy, breaking down the 5 C's. Really, the ultimate C right there is the cool bro.
Teammate bonding of the episode. I mean, look, I don't support it, but I do feel like the guys get bonding over the homophobia. Probably, like you didn't see Guard Dog and Big Sexy hanging out a lot before, and also the defensive players, and those guys got together in the name to be completely homophobic and terrible to their teammates. So I think not my preferred method of teammate bonding, but I do think it was technically teammate bonding.
Yeah, I would say the teammate bonding. I mean, they all bonded over being very homophobic toward Gerwich. Was unfortunately the most bonding I saw.
Best Actor award, I'm thinking is Gerwitz. I think he carried this as best you can. It is a full soap opera plot line, but the man did his work. I was buying him being abused on that field and just continuing to fight, and I liked it.
Yeah, I thought Gerwich was pretty believable as an actor. Of all the things that were wrong with this show, that was a believable performance.
Worst Actor award, I will continue to give unto the gay ex-boyfriend guy. I just feel like and honestly, he's playing the character well enough, I guess, and getting the results that you'd want out of the role. But everything is so hammy with him, so I will continue to give him my Worst Actor awards as well.
Yeah, I maybe it's because I just hate the Leon character so much, but I do think some of his stuff is pretty bad. So I'll give him the Worst Actor award.
Seeing that wouldn't be on TV today, the whole episode.
Yeah, this whole thing is getting canned.
Yeah, honestly, the more the show goes on, I'm like, wow, I honestly did not know this is going to be so tough to do content around and not feel like we're treading some tough lines. But yeah, the whole episode, Playmaker of the episode. I mean, I think I will give it to Gerwitz again. I love everything I got out of Gerwitz here. True gritty guy, living up to the scrappy white wide receiver labels, and then adding some new ones with the possibly gay white wide receiver who's also scrappy award. So he's my Playmaker here, and I hope we somehow get a return from him. This isn't just the show like writing him off down the stretch after he's been a pretty big part here for the last few weeks.
Yeah, I'm still giving it to DH for, missing the Pro Bowl and still coming in with that pimp suit. Also having the best lines of the episode week after week. He really is the only thing that's keeping me coming back. That we're doing it no matter what.
Have you given him the award every week?
I think so.
I think you have. I think DH has been like, I didn't know if it was like a deliberate thing you were doing each time, but I think you definitely have given DH the award every single week.
And honestly, like if you took DH out of this show, and he's like such necessary comic relief, it would be a very miserable watch.
If you took Leon out of the show, I think it's at least 25% better.
Yes. You just remove Leon. You also, if you do that, you free up more touches for DH. You can get him to 45 carries a game if you get rid of him.
He is a clear 101 here for any fantasy drafts out there for that DFS tournament that we're doing for the Splash Play Pro Bowl, or for the Playmakers Pro Bowl, rather. All right, Pete, what are the plugs here? Obviously, people should be following you at Peter Overzet. They should be following me at Chris Spags. They should be following our at Splash Play Pod handle as well. But you're hitting the road. What do you have going on here show-wise? Any plugs?
Yeah, no shows until Monday. I'll do the best ball draft on Monday. The underdog streets are super fun right now because they just launched that $5 tournament and they're filling super fast. It's already I think at 30% full, and it's been open like less than a week. So they'll probably end up releasing another one. And then I have my my randomizer boxes, which it has a lot of goodies. We got coaster, we got shot glasses, bottle openers, and it includes $25 on Underdog. So as I was explaining last night, if you haven't signed up for Underdog, you can basically get a randomizer box for $10 because $10 deposit, you get 25, and then you get a $25 card with the box. So that's $50 in entries for just $60 total. So, and it includes the box, and you support me as an unemployed content creator. So yeah, get your randomizer boxes.
Yeah, all that math checks out. I will be doing absolutely nothing besides coming back next week and doing the show and hanging out and dealing with this miserable 72-degree weather inside this apartment. But we appreciate all you guys for being here. Make sure to subscribe to Pete's channel and the Splash Play channel. Of course, like our videos and any other videos you find out there, because that's what helps out YouTube content creators. We appreciate you guys for being here. Enjoy your weekends and see you soon.